Hello and welcome to the Sleuth Booth, and I want to talk a little bit about this situation here in the UK. It's regarding the Arthur Hughes tragedy. Arthur Hughes, for those that don't know, if you're watching from across the pond or anywhere else in the world, or you just haven't looked into the story, basically Arthur Hughes was a 6-year-old boy who was in the care, I believe, of his father and stepmother, so the father's partner. Now I've been reading and I've been catching up with it this morning. Basically, I've watched a couple of news reports from Sky News, Channel 4. I've read this little bit of an article in The Guardian. I've listened to another YouTuber give their breakdown of it, and I think this boy was being abused. He was like, I think he had to sleep on the floor in the lounge. He used to be forced to stay in the hallway, like he weren't allowed in certain areas of the house, wherever the stepmom was. I think the stepmom done a lot of the abusing, and the dad knew about it but just let it go. And now, I mean, there has been issues in the past raised where the boy has bruises on him, like on his body, not like his knees, like kids falling over and stuff, or his hands. These were on like his body. And nothing was ever done about it. There was nothing ever done. It turns out that there's a big wormhole with this family, and it's left people like the social services and the government, health and social care, child care. It's left those people in big trouble and under the microscope, because basically this boy has ended up so injured that he's now deceased, and the parents have just been jailed for their their contributions to his abuse and his death. So I'm just going to read you this little article from The Guardian first. So on Monday, Education Secretary Nadeem Zawi announced the launch of a national investigation into the death of 6-year-old Arthur Labinjo-Hughes, who was killed by his father's partner in Solihull in the West Midlands last summer. So yeah, it was the father's partner. So the stepmom, basically, the boy would have seen her as stepmom, and she was obviously inflicting this evil abuse. But I believe the father wasn't, in the dark about it. He was kind of the enabler and contributor as well. The horrifying details of Arthur's case, which were extensively documented in videos and CCTV footage, have sparked national outrage. But Guardian social policy editor Patrick Butler tells Nosheen Iqbal, Arthur's tragic story is unfortunately just one of many. Last year, more than 50 children were killed in the UK as a result of abuse or neglect. That's frightening. I mean, we're just a little island of 65 million people. We're supposed to be like, leaders in so many areas. We're a developed nation. We don't want for much in this country, but to know that 50 children last year died at the hands of neglect and abuse, that's a frightening number. The more you think about it, the more frightening you realise that is. University of Birmingham social work professor Harry Ferguson was part of a research team tasked with investigating the impact of COVID on social workers' capacities to keep children safe during the pandemic. He says there is a tendency to try to blame individual social workers after a tragedy like this, but the review will only have a meaningful impact if it takes systemic issues into consideration. Now, I agree with that because firstly, the social workers, they're kind of like the mediator, if anything. Like, we see them as an authority, and people get scared of social workers because they feel that they have the power to do things. They have an element of power in the sense that, you know, their accounts, what they put on paper and give to, you know, the people that do call the shots, their voice is very credible because they're coming at it from a more academic, more, you know, more a higher level of understanding viewpoint. You know, they know the law, they know the nature of the situation, blah, 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 blah. But to think that a social worker can just walk in and take a child out of care, they can't. The only people who can do that is the court and the police. And police can only do it in an emergency. The courts, obviously, you have to go through the court system. But there was no ball rolling, really, on this one. This is the issue. There were the different people, whether it's health, you know, it could be the doctor, could be the teachers, could be the parents, the grandparents, like everyone should be feeding back to the social worker. If a child is under a social worker, then you should report to social, because the social worker will then gather all that up and then they will take it to the court to say, look, we need to remove this child. But I mean, more will come out, no doubt. I mean, at the moment, it was more about getting the parents in jail. So we're going to quickly take a look at this Channel 4 clip about the situation with Arthur. They give a nice little, it's not a thorough breakdown, but it just gives you bits and pieces of, you know, the whole case. So I picked this one out specifically because it's not too long, but it's not a pointless watch. There's a lot of information, especially if you're catching up or you've not looked into this story at all. So let's take a look.
This is how Arthur's extended family want him to be remembered. A shy little 6-year-old who loved footy. We owe it to Arthur to understand what went wrong, said the government today, announcing a review.
No government anywhere in the world can legislate for evil, but we will take action wherever we can to stop it from happening again. This review will focus specifically on Arthur's case and identify where improvements need to be made. But I also want to make certain we have looked at how all the relevant local agencies are working now, including how they are working together.
Enjoying an ice cream on one of the hottest days of last year. This new footage shows Arthur's dad, Thomas Hughes, and his girlfriend, Emma Tustin. But as they treated themselves, Arthur was being made to stand in the hallway alone for up to 14 hours a day. The couple were filmed on police body cam on the day Arthur died.
He's banged himself off the radiator, he's hit me, he's kicked me in the process of me trying to get him back on the thinking step.
After months of horrific cruelty in one of the most distressing cases of its kind in recent times. How did the social workers and police officers who made a pre-arranged visit to this family during lockdown have concluded there were no safeguarding issues? The authorities had been alerted several times by Arthur's family, who had found a bruise on his shoulder.
No one loves me. No one is going to feed me. Those are the words that broke the hearts of my town, and it seems our country as well. My right honourable friend, ensure the investigation focuses on the clear breakdown in partnerships between the likes of social services, the police and educators. Why on earth weren't they talking to each other?
There is understandable anger here about what happened to this frail little boy. Arthur's story has prompted a national debate about how, as a country, we safeguard our most vulnerable children. Are individual social workers to blame, or is it the wider service? A service which has been struggling after years of cuts.
We've spoken to a number of social workers who didn't want to come on camera, but who told us they're having to manage double their usual caseload at a time when children's services are struggling for resources.
What we do know is that during lockdown, There were a lot of pressures on social workers and other colleagues in getting access and making really strong assessments. The resources there for social workers to have protective equipment and other things that they might need to keep in touch with families was reduced.
Do you think that some social workers were too worried about following the COVID rules rather than going in there and seeing what was really going on in some families?
They were under the direction and the guidance of their managers about the risks they should or shouldn't take.
It's been almost 20 years since the lambing review followed the death of Victoria Colombier, murdered by her great-aunt. We were promised then that social services, schools and the police would all work together to make sure abuse was not missed. Labour warned today that although Arthur's murder has horrified the nation once again, the government is failing its own target that every vulnerable child should receive high-quality care. In this footage, Arthur's stepmom enjoys a takeaway, whilst in the hallway the little boy was being starved. The Attorney-General is now reviewing the 29-year sentence she received on Friday and the 21 years given to Arthur's dad.
Oh, guys, to think that they were starving him, like, could you imagine, like, I couldn't sleep. You know, if I was sitting there eating McDonald's while my son is just standing in the hallway, you know, really, really hungry. I mean, that's more than just bad parenting. That's more than bad parenting. That is evil. That's do you know, I can't even find the words. And do you know what really upset me the most is, I don't know if anybody's seen this, but if I go back here, there is a recording, and it is the most awful recording, I promise you. There's a recording of the little boy, and he's obviously been sleeping in the lounge. He's got his quilt cover, he's got his pillow, and he's just getting up, and it's so distressing because he's upset. You can see he's upset, and he wants you know, he wants something to eat, and he's just saying nobody loves me. Anybody that doesn't want to watch this, click off now. Totally understand. I don't like watching it. I mean, most people will not like watching this, but I think those that can watch it, I think we need to watch it to understand just the level of impact this is having on kids. Let's just take a look.
For almost 30 years, I fought a battle for us to get our independence as a country back from the European Union.
guys, obviously that is, you can see why I said now that, you know, anybody wanted to click away, because that to me that is extremely disturbing. That's just to not just to see that, but to know the bits and pieces that have gone with it, like the other ways that they treated him, and obviously the fact that he had injuries and he got so badly hurt, and there's, you know, his life is gone. You know, this poor little boy who should have been thriving. You know, he should be enjoying school, he should be having friends, he should be playing with toys, enjoying McDonald's, you know, giving him a cheeky bag of sweets in front of a movie, or, you know, playing on an iPad. Like, he should be doing all of those things, but instead he's crying for food. No one's coming to him. You know, he doesn't sleep properly, he doesn't eat properly, and he's being assaulted. He's being assaulted on a regular basis, and it's ultimately led to this. And I'm just wondering, what do you guys think? Who do you think? Do you think that there's an individual responsibility? Do you think it's just solely on the parents? Do you think the social workers had failed? Do you think the system itself have failed? Do you run with the narrative that COVID-19 could have been the driving force behind this? I think COVID-19 is a driving force for many things, but when it comes down to a child being injured to the point that they've been killed, and the parents are trying to cover it up, and, you know, and they've even, you know, concocted a lie and showed zero remorse, I don't think COVID-19 has anything remotely close to do with that. That's nothing to do with lockdown. That child has been born into this kind of environment. If he wasn't at first, he definitely has been for a while. I mean, how long has he lived with the father and the other parent? I've not looked into that side, you know, sort of like the historics and stuff. But still, I mean, if you're going to blame one agency, you've got to blame them all, because this kid must have seen a doctor at some point. He's been to hospital. I think the photographs that were taken, was it a doctor or something like that, hospital? So there's records there. The social worker visits, you know, they're meant to needle pick as much as possible. You know, like, where is the child's bed? Where is his toys? Where is this? You know, where does he play? Where? Just different things, man. But I don't know. I think it's the system as a whole, if I'm honest. But you guys might think differently, so let me know in the comments. And guys, you've been in the Sleuth Booth.